and high school football was going to be a snoozer, you would have been dead wrong. This is the Under the Lights High School Football Podcast. I'm Kyle Parmley, joined by Gary Lloyd today. Gary, we got some exciting games last week.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes non-region weeks can be a snoozer, and last week certainly wasn't, and it really got started Thursday night, and we saw a lot of good stuff Friday as well. So for a non-region week, it was a fun 2 nights.
Yeah, you mentioned Thursday night. Let's start right there. If you weren't in Alabaster at Warrior Stadium, chances are you caught at least a little bit of this game on ESPN2. That was Clay-Chalkville taking down Thompson 36-33. We all know about Thompson, top ranked in 7A, four-time defending state champions. Clay-Chalkville, been one of the top 6A programs for the better part of a decade now. But man, this was an awesome football game to be at, to cover, just to get to experience. I'll tell you a couple things I was impressed with Clay-Chalkville. Their physicality up front all night long was super impressive. Obviously, Jaylen Mbakwe at quarterback. This guy, he hasn't regularly played quarterback in a few years, but he's been the QB this year. He runs for 159 yards and 5 touchdowns for the Cougars. Really led that fourth quarter comeback when the Cougars scored 22 unanswered to take the lead there. There was a viral highlight of the 2-point conversion play that, if you saw that, was pretty awesome. The throwback pass to offensive tackle Jaquan McCroy. He just kind of shoved a few defenders into the turf and kept on moving. But even at the end, Clay-Chalkville gets a 10-point lead, and Thompson still almost came back and made to force overtime, almost made a field goal. So, Gary, that was just a really cool game. I don't know what your perspective on it was, but being there that night was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone, but I was certainly parked on the couch watching it, especially that second half. And I was actually texting with another coach about the game, and I was just kind of like, well, what are you seeing here, And he said Clay's offensive line is huge. And I think that was kind of the story of the game. Like last week we talked about kind of the matchups of athleticism, how fast Thompson's defense is, the athletes Clay has on offense. And it really just started and ended up front for Clay-Chalkville. They just moved bodies all night, Thursday night, and just gave Jalen Mbakwe and others tons of room to run. Both defenses were, kind of shaky at times. But Clay-Chalkville, we talked about that as well. They made a play near the end when they had to. Rod Ivy comes down with just an incredible interception along the sideline. And, again, like we talked about last week, it doesn't do anything for region standings, obviously. This one doesn't win you or lose you a state championship. But you feel like Clay-Chalkville probably takes just a tremendous amount of confidence from a game like that moving forward for their last, I guess, 3 games of the year heading into the playoffs. And for Thompson, they probably found some things they need to work on. And their 7A Region 3 opponents that they have left, maybe they see a little bit of a blueprint of, hey, maybe we should try to exploit this when we play Thompson, that kind of thing. So just a tremendously awesome high school football game. Glad a national audience got to see it and see some of these kids from our coverage area. So it was just, it more than lived up to the billing. So just a great, great game.
Yeah, absolutely. There was, regardless of classification, I mean, Clay-Chalkville put itself as potentially the best team in the entire state. You're obviously fighting with teams like Thompson and 6A number 1 Saraland for that kind of title. But yeah, just a great football game. And like you said, long-term ramifications, there aren't any in terms of tangible standings or seedings or anything like that. But that's a huge win for a program to get a national spotlight like that, to go on the road and to really prove that, this team is a dangerous one as they head down the stretch.
Yeah, something I really want to know. I want to know how long offensive coordinator Stuart Floyd has had that 2-point conversion in his bag. It feels like he maybe saved it a little bit for national television, but that was just an awesome play call. And my gosh, I mean, I heard Jalen Mbakwe in the post game say, like Jaquan runs like a 6'2" 40. He was kind of joking a little bit, but hey, you can run an 8.240 if you can knock dudes down like that if you're 6'8", 350. So that was just a wow moment in that game.
Yeah, no doubt it was. Yeah, I did see Stuart Floyd after the game and mentioned it to him, and yeah, no, he was definitely proud of that one, as he should be. It was a great play
Yeah.
call, great play design.
Yeah.
Um, and then, one more thing, we're going to talk to Clay-Chalkville head coach Drew Gilmer and quarterback Jaylen Mbakwe here in just a minute. But the one thing that has, impressed me the most about Jaylen is he's committed to Alabama. He's going to be more than likely a defensive back at the next level. He's played wide receiver for Clay-Chalkville for several years, but the willingness senior year to go play quarterback when your team has a need and they bring that to you like, hey, we think you need to play quarterback. They give it the best chance to win. To be able to do that and to realize that there's going to be growing pains along the way. In the first several games, there have been. I mean, as he's trying to settle into an offense, any quarterback coming in, you see, hey, I'd have Jaylen Mbakwe and Mario Craver to throw it to. Well, Jaylen Mbakwe doesn't have Jaylen Mbakwe to help throw it to, right? So that it's going to be a little more difficult, but just really impressed with the job that he did. I think he ended up with 29 rush attempts the other night, which is a lot, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do to win the game, and he was certainly effective, and that was just a great performance by him.
Absolutely, it was. I'm not convinced that Jaylen couldn't throw the ball 20, 30 yards and then run, take off, and catch it himself. Though he's a fast dude. So no, but yeah, just he's becoming certainly. I mean, everybody knows how he projects, 5-star guy, all that. But this season, especially so far, there's a lot left down the line here in October and November. But he's certainly becoming one of those Clay-Chalkville legacy guys.
Yeah, no doubt. So with all that being said, let's take a few moments and talk to Gilmer and Mbakwe. All right, let's welcome into the podcast Clay-Chalkville head coach Drew Gilmer and quarterback Jaylen Mbakwe. Guys, coming off a huge win over Thompson last Thursday night on national TV. Coach, just tell us how cool that was to be part of that environment and to be able to get a win like that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it is. It's special. You don't get to play in many atmospheres like that, and I mean, so every time you do, man, you got to cherish it. It's it's few and far between. It's something these kids will remember forever. Something we'll remember forever. Like I said, it was a fun night. Good night for football.
Yeah, Jaylen, take me back to kind of starting the fourth quarter. Thompson takes the lead back in the third, and then you guys score 3 touchdowns in a row to take the lead back. Just what was the sideline like heading into the fourth quarter, knowing you guys had to make something happen?
The sideline was pretty pumped. We went down 2 touchdowns, 26-14. We just kept our composure and was like, we did it before, so I feel like we can do it again. And that was just a message to the whole sideline. When we did, we just knew that we could win this ball game. Let's just stay level-headed until the clock hit 0.
For both of y'all, is that maybe the best game that this offensive line has played?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think as a whole, I thought they did an extremely good job of just getting a hat on a hat, moving some bodies against a really talented and physical group. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was probably the best well-rounded game that offensive line's played so far.
Jaylen, how long has Coach Floyd had that play in to throw the ball to Jaquan?
We put it in like 2 days before the game.
Wow. Was that just super cool to have a play like that and also have it on national TV?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It was a definitely cool play to put in, just get the big guy in the end zone.
Well, it looks like you guys, I mean, y'all might need to get some tips from him. I mean, that stiff arm, nobody was touching him.
Yeah, but the spike was horrible. I mean, it was an awful spike in the end zone there at the end. Like, if we're going to get a penalty, come on, we got to make it worth it.
Hey, the big fellas don't get the ball very often. They're not.
I know. We got to work on the celebration.
Yeah, well, Coach, just tell me a little bit about, we talked after the game, and like in the grand scheme of standings, playoffs, all that, this game doesn't matter. But What do you take from this game that you'll be able to take with you down the stretch?
Well, I mean, I think for a little bit of it, like I said, it doesn't mean anything as far as the season goes or anything like that. And me and Coach Freeman, we talked about that before, but it's also a great time for both of us to evaluate our programs to get it against elite talent. Like, so, if you have something out of place, man, it gets exposed really quick in a game like that. So I think, again, it gave us great tape to evaluate our guys. And then too, I think we kind of found something offensively in the fact of just, hey, being able to run the football, man, like that's our identity. Like, we got to be able to do that. And, and being able to do that against Thompson, you should be able to do it against everybody. And like I said, and then too, like I said, if they load up the box, man, you got to be able to take your shots on the outside. So again, I think it just kind of solidified what we kind of already knew, is like kind of who we are and what our identity needs to be, here on out.
Jaylen, before this year, when was the last time you played quarterback, and what has that kind of transition been like for your senior year playing QB?
The last time I played was like 8th grade in middle school. But the transition has been great. Having Coach Floyd and Coach Gilmer on my side, and the guys around me, the offensive line, the receivers. So it's been great, making it easier on me and me picking up things easily. Playing DB, so me playing DB helps a lot with the offensive side of the ball. Oh yeah, I forget my first touchdown. Yeah.
So, like, obviously everybody knows you project as athlete DB at Alabama. You've played receiver, you've played quarterback. What I'm curious about, imagine the biggest game of your life, whether it be a state championship, whether it be a national championship, a Super Bowl, whatever. Do you want to win the game running or throwing the ball at quarterback, or do you want that game-sealing INT?
I probably want the game-winning rushing or passing touchdown.
Okay.
That's fair. I mean, as long as you win, though, right?
As long as we win, we'll take either one.
Well, Coach, tell me a little bit about this whole process. I mean, because, Jaylen could have been selfish and been like, Coach, I don't really want to do that my senior year. So kind of tell me what it says about him and kind of take me back to that conversation when you first kind of laid it out on the table that said, hey, we think this gives us the best chance to win for you to play quarterback.
Yeah, well, I think don't give me too much credit for this. It was really Jalen's idea. Jalen's the one that kind of came to us and basically said, hey, if you need me to play quarterback, I'll play quarterback. And so, man, that speaks volumes to talk about a kid like that that's willing to put the team first in today's society where it's all about me. For a guy to put his teammates first and do what's best for the team, not necessarily him. Man, that's I don't know, that's the trademarks of the champion right there, if you ask me. And so again, that's what it really came down to. Is he came back and said, man, hey, y'all need me to play quarterback? Hey, I'll do it. And we kind of thought about it, and that's kind of feel like our best shot. And man, he just took it in stride, and man, has made it so much better.
How do y'all approach I think you've got an off week this week, and then going to Huffman. How do you kind of approach an off week? Is it getting back to fundamentals? Is it strictly recovery? What is it for you?
No, it's a little bit of both, a little bit of recovery, a little bit of fundamentals. Again, just trying to stay sharp. We just got off practice field a few minutes ago, actually. And so went up there and kind of had an hour and a half practice and just kind of back to the fundamentals. It's just cleaned up little things that we got to clean up. There's always room for improvement. So that's kind of how we treat it. But we also got to get some guys healthy and just some nagging injuries that we kind of had the first part of the season, kind of get them ready to go for the second half.
Jaylen, kind of take me in the locker room here. Last season, high expectations, and then man, it just doesn't end the way you want it to in the playoffs. So how much motivation is there? Like, what kind of things are you guys really thinking about as we head down the stretch here and really wanting to make a push in the playoffs this year and not let that happen again?
It's not too much of thinking about anybody. We just plan and thinking about ourselves and staying level-headed, staying together, playing as a team. Staying around. And, the goal is to go 8-0 right now, so that's the plan.
Coach Saban would love that answer, by the way.
Yeah. Coach, I don't want to put any carts before horses, but you're getting close to Jerry Hood's win total. Y'all are tied for playoff wins, topped in ClayChalkville history. I'm curious, a guy like that you coached with for so long. What was his inspiration on you, that kind of thing? Like what kind of guy was he to be around in the building?
Oh, man. I mean, again, he was like a second father figure to me, a guy that just took me in. And again, I got brought over here, and long story short, my old assistant high school principal, Mr. Laney, was the principal here at the time. He's the one to hire me, took me to Coach Hood and said, "Hey, do something with him." But Coach Hood just took me underneath his wing and kind of taught me everything, and man, put a lot of trust in me, and man, just kind of grew me. And so again, I owe the world to Coach Hood. It's just I couldn't ask for a better mentor of showing me the ropes and teach me. And still to this day, I mean, heck, I talk to him probably, every other day probably. Man, he's just a phenomenal human being, and was extremely blessed to work underneath him, and still considering one of my closest friends.
Yeah, and kind of in that same vein, just ClayChalkville as a whole. I know the school isn't that old. 1996 was the first time, and the football program specifically, I think since that time has only had 4 losing seasons, one of which was due to forfeits, 2011, all that stuff. How has ClayChalkville had so much staying power, like year after year?
No, I mean, it goes back to the kids. I mean, again, we've had great talent. Great kids here who play hard, who play physical, who do the right thing. So man, that just shows you it's not the coaching, it's not this or that. I mean, it comes back to the kids. The kids are what makes ClayChalkville special.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I have very similar Jerry Hood type stories. Like when I first started doing this 10 years ago or however long ago it was, I was covering those ClayChalkville teams that the Ty Pigram and TJ Simmons, Nico Collins, that whole bunch. And I always jokingly tell people, it's like it took me 3 years before I had any idea that Coach Hood liked me. He just has a way about him. And
we always had a thing. We'd get a text from him, and he'd say, "Call me," and we'd be like, "Man, are we in trouble? What did we do wrong?" Like, he had that authoritative figure.
Yep. Yeah, but
I felt the same way covering him early on. I felt like there was like he's testing you. You kind of have to earn his trust, earn his respect, kind of thing. And once you did, you're best friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what they all call him, Papa Hood. Now that's him.
That's right.
Yeah, just an awesome guy. Well, Coach, last thing from me. As you kind of navigate this back half of the season, the 2 open dates, a few more region games, what's kind of the focus? I mean, obviously, there's huge big picture goals for this team, and I want to know how you're going to approach helping them get there.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're just taking it day by day. Again, our focus is on us getting better every single day. So again, that's our thought process. Whether it's in the weight room, whether it's in the film room, whether it's out on the practice field, game day, whatever, is what can we do to make ClayChalkville better that day? And if we'll worry about that, then everything else is going to take care of itself.
Jalen, how you feeling after 29 carries the other night?
Great, get back to a little recovery and make a stretch for the state championship.
Sounds good. Well, hey guys, we really appreciate you coming on. We know there will be some more big wins down the stretch, and we look forward to following along. So that's ClayChalkville head coach Drew Gilmer, quarterback Jaylen Mbakwe. Guys, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Always great to hear from those guys. Like Gary mentioned earlier, the Cougars have got 3 more games to wrap up the regular season, a couple of off weeks before they get rolling into the playoffs. So we will be keeping tabs on ClayChalkville as we go. But Gary, let's talk about the game that you were at on Friday night. Briarwood gets a 21-0 shutout over Oak Mountain. It was homecoming for Briarwood, just an all-around cool night. Their first shutout of a 7A program in their history. So this Briarwood Lions team looks like they're rounding into form a little bit.
Yeah, especially the defense. The offense did enough, and some of that credit goes to the Oak Mountain defense too. The Oak Mountain defense hasn't played poorly the last 3-4 weeks. So Briarwood did enough there, but for Oak Mountain offensively, they're just searching right now. I mean, Will Odell is carrying the load at quarterback, obviously through the air, but more so on the ground. Oak Mountain really had one really good drive and they get down to like the 2-yard line, run it into the end zone, but fumbles in the end zone. And, that would have made it, I think, a 7-7 game at the time. If that happens, who knows what happens later in the game. But, yeah, 400th win in program history for Briarwood. That was a big deal for them. I actually saw Coach Fred Yancey there, the former Briarwood head coach, and said, hey, if y'all win tonight, you know what it is, right? He said, no. It says 400th win. And he said, you're kidding. And I said, well, Coach, you've got 278 of them. You got to be getting close. So we got to chat for a few minutes. It was cool that he was there. It was one of those, like, carnival type nights, like where it's homecoming, your team plays well and wins. You do something big like that, like win a 400th game. Just a lot of stuff surrounding the game that was really cool. And then just on the field, the Briarwood defense plays really well, like you said, rounding into form. They really got after it up front. And then, 21 points, it's not a ton. It's 3 touchdowns, but it looks like this Briarwood passing game is getting more confident week to week. I mean, they're not throwing for 350 yards. I mean, they might throw for 200, but you're starting to see some receivers kind of emerge and gain some confidence. Guys like Sawyer Click, Caleb Keller, Cooper Higgins ran the ball really well. Will Clark, that we've seen at quarterback and more so running lately, he got injured early in the game, so we'll see what his status is this week. But it didn't affect them against Oak Mountain, so I don't know if it's just precautionary or if he's actually like hurt, like might miss some time, but we'll see this week. But yeah, Briarwood, big win for them. And for Oak Mountain, they've got to keep searching and, keep running out there and trying stuff and see if they can find some holes and get some guys open and just see who wants to be that playmaker, who's going to emerge and that kind of thing on offense. So,
yeah. Briarwood has a huge game at Helena coming up this week. We'll talk about that one a little bit later on. Another game that was certainly opened some eyes. Mountain Brook goes to the Hoover Met and picks up a 34-24 win over the Bucks. That's a good win for the Spartans. It's the first time that Mountain Brook has won in this rivalry, if you will, since 2011. If we're being honest, like the talent gap had just kind of become a little too wide in recent years, especially with Mountain Brook dropping down to 6A. And, they still were playing a 2-game non-region series the past couple years. But at least for Mountain Brook, the show is still Cole Gamble on offense. He carried the ball 38 times, 213 yards, 4 touchdowns. Just another incredible performance for him. And the Spartans, they're on the uptick. They look really strong as of late. And this Hoover team, we've talked about it. It's a struggle right now. They're 1-5 now, and kind of similar to what you were talking about with Oak Mountain, just trying to find answers and haven't been able to come up with many lately.
Yeah, and I mean, this like rivalry and they used to be in the region together aside, this to me was kind of what you, I don't want to say want, but expect in a non-region kind of game. Like Hoover's been searching offensively. It seemed like, 24 points on that Mountain Brook defense. It seems like Noah Schuback and some of the receivers found some things positive in the early stages of this game. They got out to a big start. I think it was like first play from scrimmage maybe was a big touchdown play. And then that provides Mountain Brook, hey, our defense, we need to, what went wrong in these plays? It gives Hoover something positive to look at and gives Mountain Brook something to work on defense. And then, kind of the same the other way around, Hoover stopping that run and that kind of thing. But to me, reading the recap from this one, what I took from it most was the quarterback play. Coach Chris Yeager at Mountain Brook kind of said it, that maybe earlier in the season, new quarterback John Cooper maybe was pressing a little bit at times, but he's really kind of calmed himself down and started to kind of take what the defense gives him. He goes 10 of 12, I think, for 146, 150 yards, not making mistakes, protecting the ball and letting the running game do the work. So Mountain Brook again looks like a formidable opponent, especially as that quarterback play continues to get better and better.
Yeah, totally agree. John Cooper's playing a lot better, and Hoover's passing attack had some big moments in that first quarter, but they just couldn't sustain it. So we'll see where both of these teams go from here. Mountain Brook will have an off week. Hoover will get back into region play. On the other side of high scoring, big time affairs, there's this one on the other side. Homewood heads to Pinson Valley, picks up a 10-7 win over the Indians. Homewood finally gets their revenge against this Indians program that has beat them twice in the playoffs, beat them last year. Homewood holds Pinson at just 210 yards. The stat line that stood out to me the most is Homewood receiver Kyla Newell with a big night, 7 catches, 141 yards. But the Patriots really did this on with defense.
Yeah, did it with defense, and it seemed like Homewood maybe had some opportunities in the first half offensively that maybe kind of they squandered a little bit, some red zone inefficiencies, and then you come out in the third quarter and do what you needed to do. Defense holds up, and just another positive momentum kind of game for Homewood. They've been streaking a little bit here and scoring 40+ points, and then they turn around non-region and do it in a 10-7 slugfest. So yeah, just a good non-region confidence win for Homewood on the road, and a nice tune-up as they will get back into region play here soon. And the struggle kind of continues this year for Pinson Valley, just down a little bit this year. So we know a program like that will bounce back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, of course. A couple other scores from the other night. Pelham beats Chelsea 27-7. Pelham jumped out early, and that was never really a contest. And then Hewitt-Trussville beats Huffman 62-0 on homecoming night. So that's all we have for the non-region weeks. We had a few teams taking an open date. But Gary, with that being said, let's go ahead, turn the page to week 7. We've got a few really big games. Let's start out with Hewitt-Trussville hosting Thompson. This could be a region title game, so to speak. This could also be a game that has no impact on the region title, considering how much time is still left in the season and the way things could shake out. But if you look at this matchup, Hewitt-Trussville has really struggled to beat the Thompsons and the Hoovers the last several years in this region. Well, they got the Hoover monkey off their back a few weeks ago, and now Thompson comes in. And look, this is one of those that Hewitt's only win in this series over the last 7 was in 2019 when it was the last game of the regular season for both teams and everything was already decided. Hewitt knew they weren't making the playoffs. They were trying to go out with a bang. Thompson already had everything settled in front of them. But Hewitt's defense playing really well of late. They haven't given up double-digit points in like a month. So that'll be a key for them to really keep that going. And then on the other side, Hewitt-Trussville is going to have to find a way to move the ball and score points, because when we saw Vestavia play Thompson a few weeeks ago, Vestavia is normally powerful offense, really struggled. So this is going to be a fun matchup. It's a huge opportunity for this Hewitt-Trussville program. Can they capitalize?
Yeah, I think it is a huge opportunity. I mean, they've already gotten that Hoover monkey off their back. They win at Hoover, and then you get Thompson at home. So you can't ask for a much better draw than to have them at home. And did they maybe learn a little bit watching Clay-Chalkville and the physical running style that they succeeded with at Thompson this last week? I don't know that there's a 7A Region 3 offensive line that's big as Clay-Chalkville's offensive line. But if you can win up front, maybe you can create some running room. And, Hewitt's been explosive all year in all phases. You've had guys like Jacob Serena and Dylan Cope and Jadon Loving and all these guys on the outside. But you do have a running game that maybe doesn't get as many of the accolades, as many of the highlights as Peyton Floyd throwing the ball, as Peyton Floyd running the ball. But you've got Jackson Melton in the backfield. You've got Kennedy Mitchell back there. They've got guys that can get this job done and get the win. You've just got to go out there, take care of the football, and do what you need to do. And I think we're going to see a very competitive game. And I mean, this game, and then certainly next week, will go a long way in Region 3, determining that 1-2. Like you said, if Thompson wins, I mean, Thompson's most likely they will be the 1 seed. But if Hewitt gets this win, it gets pretty interesting next week with Hewitt at Vestavia as far as who might be that 2 seed and get to host in the first round. So there's certainly a lot on the line for both teams, and I expect a very locked in Hewitt-Trussville to try to take care of business at home against their toughest, maybe their toughest competition to date, not named Central Phoenix City.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that really stands out to me about what you said, especially, Hewitt-Trussville has multiple ways of being able to get it done on offense. Now, granted, with Clay-Chalkville, uh, there's some superior athletes on that side of the ball, especially. But Vestavia Hills, they knew going in, like, they're not going to have a talent and athleticism advantage, but their offense is just kind of like it goes as John Paul Head goes. And when Thompson lasered in on that, Vestavia just really struggled to find a counter to that. Well, Hewitt-Trussville has every facet of an offense that you need. So I do think that gives them an opportunity that if plan A doesn't work, plan B is still viable for Hewitt-Trussville. So, yeah, I mean, I see this being a very competitive game. The one thing that is going to have to happen is Hewitt-Trussville's defense is going to have to play a great game, because if they give up, 28, 35 points to Thompson, I just don't think they're going to be able to compete in this ball game. So Huskies will need a big showing from their defense. I'm excited to see this. I hope the stands will be packed at Hewitt-Trussville Stadium, and I'm looking forward to being out there. But Gary, let's talk about the game you're going to be at. Briarwood paying a visit to the Helena. Helena's a team that, as everybody knows, Gary is the leader of the bandwagon. I think Gary's got a whole closet full of Helena gear at this point. He's been he's been championing the cause for several weeks now. So Gary, this is one of those chances. This is kind of for superiority in the region so far.
Yeah, both teams undefeated in the region. Yeah, I think the only teams undefeated in the region, maybe. But that it's a tall task. I mean, Helena's fairly loaded. I mean, Carson Acker is a good quarterback. Hunter Hale, the wide receiver, I mean, he was like an all-state guy a year ago. And then let's talk about that running game. Jordan Washington and company, that running game's been getting it done for a year now. They're just so good offensively. I mean, they're averaging, I think, 43 points a game. The defense seems much improved compared to a year ago. That's going to be a really tough place for Briarwood to go in and get the win. But to do it feels like one of those, try to create some turnovers, try to get, stuff to run, force them to pass, and hope that your secondary guys like Gray Rebels can come away with some interceptions and create a short field. If you can't create a short field, sustain some long drives, keep that Helena offense, on the sideline. So yeah, it's just a massive game for region standings. Not unlike this Hewitt-Thompson deal where Helena is kind of seems like the clear one in the region, and you're fighting to get another win and hopefully put yourself in a position to host in that first round. So but Briarwood, the defense has been playing well. They're going to have to play their best game this week. And the offense, is Will Clark going to be healthy? Will that running game find some success? Can the passing game keep developing this week? Just a lot of questions of, can this happen? Will that happen? Kind of thing. So all I know is it's a very tall task, and we'll see how it plays out Friday.
Absolutely. Let me give you a few names that will play a big factor in this game. Max Luster, Andrew Kassouf, Luke Dickinson, Garrett Witherington, just a few of that defensive line for Briarwood. They're really going to have to control play, similar to what they did in that big region game against Pelham a few weeks back, where they took over in the second half. And they are going to have to impose their will to keep that running game in check, because Jordan Washington has been running all over folks all year long to this point. So
Yeah.
really looking forward to that. I know you'll have some great coverage from that game. I really want to dive into one more game. Spain Park is paying a visit to Tuscaloosa County. And let's be honest, this matchup has had absolutely no intrigue in recent years, right? This is two teams that have not been fixtures in the playoffs. However, if Spain Park beats Tuscaloosa County this week, the region gets really interesting all over again. T County has played itself into a position where they're 100% in the hunt for a playoff berth in this region that has been dominated by Hoover, Thompson, Hewitt-Trussville, and Vestavia. So, Gary, I don't know what you see from this one, but Spain Park is, they kind of got a week off to heal some of those wounds, and I think they got a shot in this game, and if they win, they kind of creep back into the picture of maybe forcing a little bit of craziness in the region.
Yeah, I think so. If that off week was as beneficial as you hope it was for the Jags, we've talked at length about the injury issues they've had over the last month and just how much that's clearly affected some of these outcomes, some of the ways the games have been played. But if they're healthy, this is definitely a gettable game, even on the road all the way at T County. T County just squeaked by Oak Mountain up here a couple weeks ago. And, if Spain Park puts it all together, I said it in the preseason, Coach Evans at Vestavia has said it about them being the most improved team. We just haven't got to see it as much lately because they haven't quite been at full strength. But, they're 0-3 in the region now. It's a must-win game if they want to create that little bit of havoc and try to, put themselves back in the playoff picture. So if they're healthy and they're clicking, I think this is certainly a gettable game for them. Got to stop that Tuscaloosa County run game. Got to slow that down. And, who better to slow down the run game than that Spain Park defensive front? That defensive front is really, really good. So I think this might be the most competitive game of the night. We'll see. I just know Spain Park needs it, and Tuscaloosa County certainly needs it as well. So we're getting to that point in the year where both teams, no matter the game, are like, we have something to fight for here. So it's battle and who's going to win out. So I think they've got a chance for sure.
Yeah, we're halfway through the season, and there's still like a team like T County could very easily end up 2-4 in the region and not even be close, or 2-5. And then there's, but on the other side, they could end up with 4 region wins and be very much in the hunt to even get that 3 seed. So there's all kinds of stuff still at play here. I'm very interested to see, because usually, like when you look at playoff matchups, like usually if a team squeaks in as a 4 seed, they're going to go on the road and get drilled by a 1 seed. However, that's not the case in 7A, especially Region 3. Like the 3 and the 4 seed the last several years have gone on the road to a North Alabama team and come back with a pretty convincing win. So lots still to be determined there. We'll see. A few more Region 3 games. Vestavia Hills paying a visit to Chelsea. This is one the Rebels should win. Chelsea's they're struggling with injuries and all kinds of things right now. Oak Mountain paying a visit to Hoover. You don't think this game will be very interesting, but the way that Hoover has struggled to get things done recently, Gary, is that a look on your face that you might see something brewing in this one?
No, I don't know that I see something brewing. It's wild to me that that game is a battle of teams that are both 1 and 5. And that's more surprising for Hoover certainly, but I think maybe Hoover found some stuff early on in that game against Mountain Brook that we talked about. Oak Mountain searching offensively, but their defense has played pretty well to date. I think it has the makings of it could be a low-scoring competitive game, but I also see where some things really start to click for Hoover this week as well. So I don't see something necessarily brewing. I think Hoover's going to get the win. And honestly, for them, stay in the playoff hunt as well. If they win, they move to 2-2 in the region and remain in a battle for that likely that 4th spot. So just a game that is more interesting than you would have thought of a month ago.
Yeah. I think Hoover gets they stem the tide. They start feeling a little bit better about themselves after this one. So we'll see. And then finally, John Carroll putting that 5-0 record on the line with a visit to Pleasant Grove. This is no slight to John Carroll, but I don't know that they have much of a chance in this one.
I mean, at Pleasant Grove, they Pleasant Grove year in, year out is, they're not just like, oh, they're a contender for the region. Oh, they're a contender for the semis. Like, they're a contender for holding up the map every single year in 5A.
They just beat Parker last week, right?
Yeah, I think that was it. It was like a close, I think 22-21 maybe, if I'm thinking of the right game.
Parker is a team that has legitimate aspirations to make it to the 6A championship game.
Yeah. Now on the other side, Pleasant Grove's already played Ramsey, and Ramsey blew their doors off. Now Ramsey's maybe even a different animal than Pleasant Grove this year, but both of those teams, they're the class of 5A in the Birmingham area, year in, year out. So, it's on the road. That's tough. John Carroll's defense, hopefully in their off week that they've had, we've talked a lot about them this year with bend but don't break, but they've had a lot of breaks on defense. Can't have those this week. You're actually going to need to create turnovers and have that offense continue doing what it's done, because it's been a pretty well-oiled machine through the first 5 games. But that is a almost straight uphill battle to go into Pleasant Grove and get a W.
Yeah, Coach Will Merrill won't say this, but get out of the Pleasant Grove and Ramsey games not too beat up, and then you can finish strong with three winnable games down the stretch. So we'll see how that goes. Gary, 2 minutes on the clock. It is time for your 2-minute drill. Air all of your grievances, anxieties, stress, worries, highlights, anything.
I didn't know that this was like a new segment that you've basically started.
I don't know, man.
I think that I don't have any grievances. The Alabama stuff has come off the letterboard. So that's good. And the offense played well enough, defense is playing good. I think the main thing is anxieties. Why? Because it's October, and there are always anxieties when it's October and the Braves are about to play either the Marlins or most likely those gosh darn Phillies.
Yep.
And that provides me lots and lots of anxiety.
Yeah, so I put something on Twitter yesterday or Monday, and it was just like, I kind of want to put the regular season for the Braves into its own box, because that's by far like the least amount of stress I've ever had in a regular season. The most fun I've ever had watching a team in the regular season. Yeah. That was all the records that they broke individually and team-wise. Unbelievable. And knowing full well that the playoffs are going to just crush me some way or another, right?
Yeah, I'm pulling so hard for the Marlins, regardless of whatever, baseball is baseball. It's different to talk about baseball in terms of matchups than like football or basketball. It's just a different kind of sport. But I would much rather play the Miami Marlins than have to host the Phillies, go to their place. I hate Philadelphia. I don't want to see them. I want them to go home packing early. I don't want to see Bryce Harper. I don't want to see Kyle Schwarber. The dude he's going to hit 45 home runs, but he's going to bat 182. Well, against the Braves, he's going to bat 400 in the series and hit 5 home runs. I don't want to see what's his face's wet hair. I just really don't want to see the Phillies.
Yeah, well, hey, at least the good news. None of the NL Division Series games are happening on a Friday. So you will not have to worry about that on a sideline, which is where we will be this week. I'll be at Hewitt-Trussville Thompson. Gary's going to be at Briarwood Helena. Both of them should be great games, kind of battle for the number 1 spot in the region as it stands right now. But that's all we've got today. Looking forward to another great week of football as teams dive back into region play. Gary, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully there will be some things worth talking about next week.
I'm sure there will be.